We celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Overture Center for the Arts this morning on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. It's hard to believe it's been 16 years since Jerry Frautschi stunned this city with the news he was donating $50 million to construct a performing arts center for the city where he was born, lived his entire life, and loves dearly. Of course, he would multiply that gift many times over until September 19th, 2004, when a world-class arts center designed by renowned architect Caesar Pelli opened its doors. Today, Overture is one of Madison's signature assets, an attraction that has had a ripple effect from State Street to the boundaries of the greater Madison region and beyond. This morning, we will note some of the challenges, but also some of the extraordinary standing ovation-worthy successes of Overture. As I welcome to For the Record, Overture CEO Ted Deedy and Overture Center Foundation board member and chair of the Development Committee, Betty Harris Custer. And joining me this morning is Madison Magazine editor Brendan Nardi. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome.
Good
Glad
morning.
you're here. I'm going to start with you, Betty, because you're a native. You've lived your whole life here. Just in terms of looking back, 16 years for you when Jerry made that gift.
It was
what an
amazing.
Extraordinary journey.
Absolutely amazing. At that time, I was chair of the president of the board of the Madison Ballet. And our now mayor, Paul Soglin, was working with me as a financial advisor, and he was on the board of CTM. And I remember the excitement in our financial planning office about everything that was going to take place for these resident organizations, because that was also then not long after Jerry's gift was announced, Pleasant Rowland's gift was announced, that was to help the resident organizations, the Great Performance Fund.
Yeah. And at that time, and for a couple of years prior to that, there was a lot of discussion about the arts in Madison. And I don't remember if it was Barry Managard who did a study, but it was decided that performance space was what the arts really
That's
needed,
right? And better acoustics, especially. You know, we'd brought in a world-class maestro, John DeMaine, for the symphony. The opera was under Roland Johnson, was doing some wonderful things. And the Oscar Mayer Theater, beautiful as it was, had some acoustical problems. Yeah. And so I think that was the real stumbling block to saying, where are we going to go from here? We need to do something. You know, we could renovate, but maybe instead start fresh.
Thanks for bringing up Pleasant. I was going to do that, and now we'll talk about this as Jerry and Pleasant. Although, as you know, every time you talk to Pleasant, she always defers to Jerry.
That's right.
It was Jerry's gift. Ted, where were you in 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I was at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center in Nashville. Yeah. And I heard about the gift, and it astounded not only myself, but all of my colleagues who also run performing arts centers around the country. It was, at the time, we heard about the $50 million gift, and then the addition to that as well. And it was not only significant at that time, but still remains the largest gift to the arts in the United States. It's amazing that after 10 years. Interestingly enough, there have been other performing arts centers built in the last 10 years that have cost twice as much as Overture Center for the Arts and don't have as many performance spaces. So in terms of the gift that Jerry and Pleasant gave to the community, we really got our bang for the buck here in Madison.
I was, many years ago, I remember convening the resident art companies, the heads of those organizations. I think at the time there were 7. This was right after the Frautschis and Pleasant Jerry had given the money, and I remember talking to them about what their hopes were and their dreams were and their fears and their anxieties. And of course it was cost of the performance space and things like that. But one of the things they were very clear on was that this was not going to be some building in the middle of downtown that was not accessible to them. Their arts organizations, many of whom, you know, at the time the Contemporary Art Museum, MoMoCA, was part of that resident art group. But we're going to be able to use it, and also it was going to have this impact on the community coming back, trickling down per se to Broome Street Theater, or all the different and varied visual arts, University of Wisconsin, all of that. So they were very clear at the time of what they were hoping it would do. Fast forward now, and you've got the resident arts companies, a little bit different makeup. We don't have Madison Rep, we have Forward Theater Company. Can you talk about that evolution a little bit with the resident arts groups and what that has meant for them and for their constituents?
The 7 transitioned into 10 organizations that we have currently. And you're right, the Madison Rep did go by the wayside, but in its place came Forward Theater, wonderful professional theater company as well. I know that there was grand hope that a lot of other organizations within the community would use it as much, possibly as the resident organizations. And in fact, there have been a lot of organizations that have used the building throughout the years, either renting from us directly or being part of a community arts access program that we have at Overture that helps to subsidize organizations' use of Overture. Now, Pleasant Roland's gift helped to subsidize and help make financially possible the resident organization's ability to use Overture. So that fear was allayed. And as Betty referred to, the Capitol Theater had some not only acoustical issues, but also just in terms of the schedule of the Capitol Theater, it was impossible for any of the 7 at the time resident organizations to maneuver that schedule and get enough time in the theater and other spaces to be able to use effectively. Overture, fast forward now, 10 years later since open, has given the resident organizations 7 different performance spaces within the building. So, and the Capitol Theater also was renovated, so there's not the acoustical issues that we had many years ago. Overture Hall is wonderful as well, acoustically wonderful gem. And then these other spaces that some of the other organizations within the community that aren't resident groups can still use and can still find some subsidies that are affordable to use.
So is there a guiding sort of philosophy or principle for Overture that you both could articulate in terms of the balance between the resident groups, the touring groups, the access to events? You know, I mean, I kind of understand from an organizational perspective, but just philosophically, what would you tell the public is sort of the guiding philosophy there?
It's a cliche, but there really is something at Overture for everyone. If you like symphonic works, there is the Madison Symphony conducted by Maestro Demain, and then the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra that performs in the Capitol Theater with Andrew Sewell as their music director. Again, orchestral works, but a slightly different musical fare. And then there's the Bach Dynamite Dancing Company, that's primarily chamber music. And then in terms of the dance companies, there's several of those, the Madison Ballet, as well as Li Chao Ping and Canopy Dance. Forward Theater that I mentioned, you know, filling out the repertoire for professional theater. Children's Theater Madison for children's theater. Again, a little bit of everything for everyone.
Well, and there's Book of Mormon, and there's Wilco. I mean, so really, I mean, that's it, right? The message is there's something for everybody here. You find your spot. You're gonna find something you like.
And the thing that we always stress too is that it's not just an array of events that people pay to come to see, but there's a whole array of free activities that take place throughout the course of the year. For instance, Kids in the Rotunda, which actually started in the Civic Center days when it was called Kids in the Crossroads. It's a wonderful program. Saturday mornings, free. Kids, their parents, their grandparents come and have entertainment from September through May.
And it's packed.
It's always
People
packed.
are turned
You always
away.
have to get there early.
We're gonna talk more about the kids and more about other things going on in Overture 10 years after it opens when we come back with it. My guest this morning, Ted Dede, the CEO of Overture Center for the Arts, and Betty Harris Custer, longtime board member of Overture Foundation and the head of the development committee, Overture. And I'm joined by my colleague, Madison Magazine editor Brendan Nardi, who starts things off this segment.
Well, we published a 10-year retrospective on Overture Center in this month's Madison magazine, and what struck me, we decided to just share people's stories, the people that were engaged and involved from the very beginning, from Mayor Sue Bauman at the time, who talks about how she came and hugged, Jerry after he'd announced that he was giving that very generous donation, to Janet Perrino, who worked for Mayor Dave Cheslevich during the times when Overture was transitioning, to put it mildly, from a public entity to a private entity. And she talks about how there was this Sunday meeting, a negotiating meeting in the middle of the winter, and how she had this big idea because she woke up and there was the city was blanketed by snow, so she called Al Schumacher, the street superintendent, to plow the streets of the negotiators so they could get into the building. And then Andre DeShields, the great Broadway actor, writes this very poignant piece on our website about how the Madison rep impacted his life and made such a huge impact on him. And he, of course, was at the opening in 2004 as part of those celebrations. So as we move into this next 10 years, I'm curious about the celebrations that we're going to have now, and how you're thinking about Overture Center's future.
Most immediate, coming up this weekend, is our big 10th anniversary celebration, where we have a multitude of activities going on. Starting on Tuesday, the 23rd, actually, the Wisconsin Academy of Arts and Letters, one of our resident organizations, is having a lecture in the Playhouse, talking about the creative aspect of putting on events at Overture, and that'll feature several members of our resident organizations talking about that process. On Thursday, the 25th, is the first of our Mad City Sessions, one of our free once-a-month Thursday evening performances in Overture Hall lobby. We have tables and chairs and food available, and people come for 2 hours and then just enjoy great music. Friday, the former Russian comedian Yakov Smirnoff is here in the Capitol Theater. But really, the real pinnacle of our 10th anniversary celebration is Saturday and Sunday, the 27th and 28th. On Saturday, the 27th, from 10 to 5 that day, we will have a street festival, both outside Overture as well as inside Overture. Outside, we are closing down 3 streets: the 100 block of State, the block of Mifflin between Overture and the Madison Public Library, and then the 100 block of Henry, just immediately behind Overture, where we will have parked 12 circus wagons from Circus World. These are wagons that have appeared in the parades, the famous parades that have gone from Baraboo to Milwaukee for many years, but they will be here on display on the streets that we have closed. We'll have
it's worth noting, too, that all 3 of those sides have been transformed in the last 10 years.
They really have, and it's still evolving as well. And it's wonderful to see how Overture, over the years, has had an effect on State Street and the square. And we hear from businesses all the time how much they appreciate having an Overture there and how much it's really improved their business. We'll have a stage on State Street with live entertainment. There will be a tent on the Mifflin cul-de-sac that will be produced by the Madison Public Library and the Madison Children's Museum with kids' activities. A lot of street performers on the street. And then inside Overture, we'll have 6 different stages active with Theater Lila, Fresco Opera, Duck Soup Cinema, which is our silent movie films that we have throughout the course of the year in the Capitol Theater. That will take place in the Capitol Theater that day. And then 12 or 13 other acts that are going on between the Rotunda stage, Wisconsin studio, stage that we've set up in Overture Hall lobby. Just a multitude of activities that people can feel free to come and go as they please and just enjoy Overture inside and out.
Something for everybody.
There we go again. It's a common theme.
But that's, just, we could all go through memories. I remember walking in there one day, and I don't know if I was there for a performance or to go to the art museum, but there was a world fair going on, right? There were, I don't know how many countries represented.
The International Festival.
Yeah, the music, the dance, and that made it feel so accessible.
Well, that's one of our major efforts for this anniversary, is we really wanted to make sure that everyone understands that Overture is a community jewel and a community-wide asset. And 10 years ago, Ted and I were talking about this earlier, and I was talking about it earlier today with someone else. You know, we had all these black tie events. The men would get in their tuxes. The women had to have at least 3 or 4 different gowns to wear. And we had all these formal events. And this time we decided we wanted to be very family friendly, very open to the community. All these events that Ted's just mentioned that will take place on Saturday. Because as wonderful as that great gala opening was 10 years ago, we still remember that one of Jerry Frautschi's most favorite memories was standing at the door Saturday morning and shaking hands of anybody walking in, welcoming them to this new home for the arts, that almost as if it was his child that he was bringing, you know, introduced to the community and turn over to their care. And it was a beautiful, beautiful memory of Jerry and all of us who were there. So.
And that was the opportunity for people to say thank you to Jerry,
That's
which I think really meant a lot to him. To kind of counter what Linda Baldwin talked about in the article is the negativity that has surrounded Overture in some ways. Do you think that negativity is gone now?
I really believe it is. We have turned the corner with the transition of Overture Center to from city management to private nonprofit management. And for the last 2.5, 3 years, we have been fiscally responsible and running in the black. We've been starting to build a cash reserve. And so we're doing things that should be done to manage the building professionally, be a good steward of the building, recognize Jerry and Pleasant's gift, and honor their inspiration that they provided to not only us but to the whole community.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that and maybe the Overture of the next 10 years when we come back right after this. Madison Magazine editor Brennan Nardi and I are talking with Ted Deedy, the CEO of Overture Center for the Arts, and Betty Harris Custer, member of the board of directors of the Overture Center Foundation, on the 10th anniversary of Overture Center for the Arts. And just to follow up on what Ted was saying before the break, Betty, just give us a snapshot of the development situation at Overture.
Well, as you mentioned, I chair the development committee of the board, a number of my wonderful colleagues joining me, and now joined with my co-chair, Roberta Gassman, as well, after I've been doing it as a solo act for 4 years.
Welcome, Roberta.
Yes. We're making our numbers. We're constantly working and reaching out to a broader constituency, not only Madison, because Overture doesn't only serve just Madison. We're really soliciting contributions from anyone of any size. We certainly are working towards building a long-term reserve to keep that building as spectacular as it was 10 years ago and as it is today. But we're also working on endowment monies. And we're finding that people are very much understanding that this is their center that they want to support. In fact, people will come to us and say, I really want to help with the building, or I want to help with the programs that make sure that anybody who wants to come to Overture can afford to come to Overture.
Wouldn't the 10th anniversary be kind of an interesting opportunity for people who want to give a gift?
Very definitely.
You know, just to celebrate 10 years?
Very definitely, yes. And we have not made this a fundraising. We've made this a celebration.
Yep, I understand.
But the anniversary will go all year long. And so we certainly will be talking to people about their ability to give and their willingness to do so.
And it's also, the 10th is another bit of a tribute to the city, to the community, for, you know, all that they've given through the arts and just the community in general, the generosity between the artistic community and the community engagement of schools and nonprofits. You've done so much through your ticket voucher program. But then you've got this really exciting collaboration among these resident art companies.
For the first time ever on Saturday night, the 27th, we have gotten all of our resident organizations, all 10 of them, to agree to participate in a program where we will celebrate the building, celebrate the gift to the community, celebrate them because they make the building come alive, and for the first time ever do a program that we're calling American Kaleidoscope. And it's that name because all of the pieces that will be done in the program that evening will be American music, American choreography, American playwrights, American poets. And each one of the resident organizations, either by themselves or in collaboration with other resident organizations, will perform this program that'll be about 110 minutes. Starting with Sam Hutchison, the organist with the Madison Symphony Orchestra, and ending at the end of the evening with a grand finale with literally a cast of hundreds of people on stage doing a very favorite piece. I won't spoil the surprise, but a very favorite piece and a very appropriate piece from Candide by Leonard Bernstein. It's going to be a marvelous program. It is a ticketed event, but it's not a black tie event. It's not a fundraiser. The cost of the ticket helps to defray some of our expenses.
It's a modest cost.
It really is.
I've seen the program. I think you have too. It's not just 7. It's much more than 7. It kind of looks like the flight schedule at O'Hare, to tell you the truth.
Who's doing all this choreography?
I'm fascinated to see how you pull
If you
this
can
off.
imagine moving from an organist to a small chamber group to a full symphony orchestra to a poet on stage to a reading from a theatrical piece back to a chamber orchestra and dancers in between. It's driving our production folks a little bit crazy at this point, but I think they've got it all together now, and it's looking great.
We only have about a minute and a half left, Ted. But just looking ahead, is there something that you would like to see at Overture, or something that you think the community would like to see that you think maybe now you could do?
The one thing that we really want to focus on in the next 10 years is, as Betty referred to earlier, make sure that the community understands not only how accessible Overture is now, but to further our reach and to develop programs and relationships with community centers, with service organizations that allows us to not only establish relationships, but allows us to help build the arts in general for the entire community. Mm-hmm. We're doing that now in partnership with the city and the school district with our Any Given Child initiative that is about to roll out. There'll be a big press announcement next month with Jennifer Cheatham, Mayor Soglin, and myself. And so that will be one of many community programs that we hope to see coming.
Well, it's interesting because with everything going on in the city right now, all of the growth going on and the sectors that are growing, it just emphasizes the importance of the arts in what they're doing and in what the future holds. Congratulations. Enjoy the anniversary.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. Our thanks to Ted Deedy and Betty Harris Custer. Next Sunday, gubernatorial candidate Mary Burke. We'll see you then.